Greetings, everyone, and welcome to day 798. Tonight, going to be an awesome time. We've got Professor Gerdes here, locked and loaded and ready to go. We have Operator Starsky here. And tonight, our purpose is to assist in educating you guys, learning ourselves. As we communicate about it more, we learn how to deal with the propaganda, understanding the Putin propaganda machine. And going to be a really, really special episode tonight. This is one you definitely want to share because a lot of truth is getting ready to be dropped in here from Operator Starsky and Professor Gerdes. Gerdes, I'm going to just do my best to facilitate as we move through it, and it's going to be fantastic. So thank you. I will tell you one announcement: free flag raffle this Friday. On my live stream, 5 o'clock Eastern this Friday, we will be giving away a free signed frontline battle flag from Fish. So make sure you guys are here and a part of that. You must be present to win. All right, guys, so here we go. I want to roll the guys in here and say good evening to both of you. Fine gentlemen, welcome.
Now, for the record, they can watch that same live stream it'll be pushed through mine. I won't be here. I'll be at a graduation for the graduate students at my university Friday night, but you can still watch it. It'll be pushed from Greg's channel through. So I want you all to be aware and be able to participate in that.
Yes, thank you for that. And what will happen is there will be a link, and it's going to be so much better this time, guys. You literally click the link, put your name and email in, and it's done. So our media specialist has really helped me this week get that streamlined. So yes, that'll be Friday. Starsky, welcome, brother.
Hello. Always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, my friend. So tonight, guys, we're going to jump right into it and focus on understanding propaganda. But before we do that, I just want to draw everyone's attention. Just a little while ago, I received an update from Odessa, and it was hit with Iskanders at the Nova Poshta warehouse. And I know Starsky will know what that is. That's what we use nonstop. I've been in that Nova Poshta. But it's the central where we do a lot of shipping to, whether it's Odessa, Hetterson, et cetera. And direct hit, it's 13 injured as of right now, but there will be more. It's calculated, it's terrorism, it's controlled, and for sure that target is known, obviously, as Nova Poshta. So that's number one. And number two, late coming news out just 30 minutes ago. We're really struggling in Ocherny there on that western or on the eastern front tonight. So remember the heroes there on the front trying to hold those positions right now, because tonight they're in a hot battle. So that's where we're at. So anything you want to add to that, Starsky or Prof? I just want people to know.
I just want to add that the fight for Chasiv Yar continues, and currently it's under our control. Russians will try to do everything they can to get control over Chasiv Yar around 9th of May, I believe, because 9th of May is Russian so-called Victory Day. It's when they get drunk and act absolutely ridiculously. So we also have information that around 9th of May they will probably start a new offensive attempt. They are concentrating their troops. This is something that we know as of now. But Chasiv Yar is holding, even though the fighting is extremely hard in that area, considering Russian strikes using gliding bombs. But our guys report that it's under our control. And also several tactical positions were improved by the Ukrainian defenders in the area of Bakhmut.
Good. If they were supplied, I mean, and now it's coming. There are some already arriving, but going to be tough. And as Starsky said, yes, there is an expected push coming on that Victory Day.
There's really 2 days there. There's the 9th. Isn't the 7th Putin's re-inauguration? Isn't that correct?
I believe something. I believe something like that. But generally, 9th of May, it's
Yeah, that's the big
the
day.
big holiday. It's a big holiday in Russia when they get drunk, when they ride towards Berlin on their cars, and things like that. The Victory Day is what we call victor insanity. I would call it
Mm-hmm.
like this. Победобесие, victor insanity. It's the best way to describe this orgy that takes place in Russia on this date.
Correct. So we'll be watching, and of course, they always want a victory for their king and their Tsar. So we shall see. But Ukraine's going to hold strong, and I'm just really believing that there's going to be a morale boost coming, and aid boost arriving, and those heroes there on the front, they know what to do with it. So plus our encouragement behind them. So I see in the chat everybody jumping on me tonight. So where's the patch at? And my mods hit me in the chat there. Tonight's patch is a group I work with, and this is the Kamenets Podolsky Territorial Defense. And this group working out in the east. And I love that patch there, that Wolverine, and really, really cool patch. So there you go, guys. You've supported Ukrainian heroes through us, Professor Gerdes. You're supporting these guys directly, and they're quite a good unit. So let's jump to it, guys. I want to get your opinions on one thing, and then I had a viewer send me an email that really tailored the thought of where we'll go tonight, and then get your guys' responses. And I'm just going to moderate and put my 2 cents in every once in a while. But the first thing is this, and that is the United States Secretary, or the Department of the Treasury, is relinquishing some sanctions temporarily. Okay. Now, I know there are multiple executive orders. I've researched this since yesterday. It doesn't matter. This is the initial executive order, and they have now relinquished. I will read this to you. Office of Foreign Assets Control, Russian Harmful Foreign Activity Sanctions Regulations. This was 14024. Involving, it says, of the licensees, transactions prohibited by the executive order 14024 involving one or more of the following entities that are related to energy are authorized through 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, November 1st, 2024. Who is released? State Bait for Development and Foreign Economic Affairs, Neshikom also Odkryty Bank, Sovcombank, Sberbank, VTB Bank, Alpha Bank, and I know, so I recognize a lot of these bank names. These are big banks: Rosbank, Bank Zenit, Bank St. Petersburg, and any entity which owns 50% or more of a greater interest, and the Central Bank of the Russian Federation. What? For the purpose of this general license, the term related to energy means the extraction, production, refinement, liquefaction, gasification, regasification, conversion, enrichment, fabrication, transport, or purchase of petroleum, including crude oil, lease condensates, unfinished oils, natural gas liquids, petroleum products, natural gas, or other products capable of producing energy, such as coal, wood, or agricultural products used to manufacture biofuels or uranium in any form, as well as the development and production. And it goes on. The bottom line is, until November 1st, these sanctions are released on these particular banks and individuals. Starsky, we'll start with you first.
Released? What do you mean by released?
Means they can function now without the sanction until November the 1st, 2024. For the purposes of energy. Just came out yesterday.
That is interesting. I wonder if this is related to strikes on the Russian oil refineries.
Exactly
not, because,
what I was going to say.
A lot of politicians, especially politicians in the United States, are concerned about raising prices on the fuel. They don't rise right now, but they afraid that it may happen if Ukraine keeps striking Russian oil refineries, which as we all know, you gotta blame only one person for that, which is Vladimir Putin, also known as Hugo. Maybe that is the reason, but again, I think we should probably find some explanation by the spokesman of the Treasury.
We will. This is just coming out, and it was interesting to me, and I actually thought the same thing you thought. It's just interesting. A lot of attacks on infrastructure, and now we see this. And I did play your clip last night when you said there's just one person to blame for high fuel prices, and that's Vladimir Putin. So what do you think, Prof, before we move into that propaganda when you see something like this?
Sheer speculation, because I don't actually know, right? So I'm prefacing with that. But it sounds very much like what Starsky said, that one thing is leading to another, and politicians, what we know for sure, like this is not speculations. James Buchanan, the Nobel Prize winning economist, proved it. What politicians care about most is being reelected. And so when does it end? November 1st, like a week before the election. So the timing just seems, so I can't prove that, but that's what my gut tells me, and it's unfortunate. But politicians, so you have to assume certain things. Like if you assume, you'll probably be pretty safe if you assume that RT is lying or shading the truth or diverting the story. You'll probably be pretty safe if you assume that politicians are doing what's in their best interest, and if it happens to coincide with what's best for the country, okay. And I think that might be what's at play here. I don't know for sure, but it seems like we're at cross purposes between what Ukraine is actually doing and what this would allow. So I don't know.
Well, there's a gentleman in our chat who worked in the Soviet Union in the 80s. I had dinner with him down in Virginia when I was there with my grandmother, and his name is Donald Gentilini. He's in my chat all the time, and the chat went past me, but I saw it. He said same thing you did. Interesting timing, pushing up to the election through this. Everything's political. So we shall see. The point being, it's sad that it would even be considered. So yeah.
So here's the thing. You got to recognize, and I think I'm being honest here and fair, that the United States government is not supporting Ukraine because they're supporting Ukraine. They're supporting it because we have overlapping interests. And we should have overlapping interests. They're a democracy that wants to be a democracy, that's trying to become more European and get away from the thumb of a autocracy that's trying to hold them under, right? So we should have overlapping interests. But if you understand that we do have slightly different interests in some ways, like even the three of us in this room, right? The three of us that are talking, we have different interests, but there's enough unity that we can actually be useful to each other and useful to push things along. But you just have to understand that there is differences in those interests. And again, politicians do what politicians do. And that's why nobody likes being called a politician, right? It's a dirty word. It's just below prostitute.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what they do, especially in the House, here in the U.S. And we'll move. It's nonstop. It's hard to govern because all you do is campaign, and that's point blank. That's right. They'll tell you that themselves on a 2-year term. So, all right,
and
let's
that's
jump
why
to
the
it.
Senate is the more stable body. That's exactly right.
Agreed. It's the upper house. So, I completely agree. All right, now I'm just using this image as a reference point. Of course, when we think of propaganda, we think of people like out of Russia, Vladimir Solovyov and Olga Skabayeva, okay? And the filth that they push out and the propaganda. But this is going to help us tonight kind of tailor the conversation, and I'm going to start with Starsky on this. This is just actually has to do with Skabaeva, but um, you know, Tucker Carlson is a I could put his face right there. In fact, we'll talk about that in a moment. And there are people in your nation. We have people here watching from all over the world, all over the world. And in your own nation, you have your local propagandists. You have your own, but these are very recognizable due to this war. And this is interesting. The timing of this. Starsky and I were talking about doing a stream about some propaganda, and it worked out on this day. And yesterday, a viewer of mine sent me an email, and I want to give thanks to I won't call the last name, but Marcus, thank you for that email. I'm gonna use some of your stuff tonight. Skabaeva gave a lecture just a few days ago on how to officially do propaganda. Okay, and I have the text of her lecture, and I'm just pulling out a few points for us to talk about tonight to help people understand. So, Olga Skabaeva, methodology of propaganda. This was her first quote. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what is happening. What matters is how we interpret this event.
Mhm.
In our modern era, this we now call the era of post-truth, when the truth is present, but also absent. So that was her premise. And then these were some, not all, of her teaching points in her lecture. And I'm going to give this one and throw it to Starsky for comment. It is more important to focus on the interpretation of a fact truth event, not on the truth itself. Fact truth event represents reality, while the interpretation of that is manipulatable. It can be changed. It can be modified. So, Starsky, we'll start with you. This is a lot of your focus now. More important to focus on interpretation than truth.
Absolutely, and this is what we see in all kinds of Russian news and updates when they use approximately 10% of truth, and the rest is basically fantasy. What Skabaeva doesn't say here is, of course, creating fakes, creating staged videos, everything that Russians really love doing. And by the way, this video was really, really interesting to watch. She said a lot of interesting things during this master class. It was basically her master class to the journalists and future propagandists of the terrorist federation. She said that one coolest thing was that she said there is no truth, there is only information, that the news don't matter much, but what matters is the order which you are paid for by third parties. So basically, they give you the narrative, they pay you for spreading this narrative, and this is what matters. That's another her brilliant quote from this masterclass. Possibly, I will review it and break it down.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, but what she didn't mention here specifically is that they also produce fakes. However, on the other hand, apparently manipulation, interpretation that she refers to is another way of saying, like, tell people that these guys scattered on the field and wearing Russian uniform, tell people that they are actually Ukrainians, right? Like Wagnerites love doing that a lot. Kadyrovites cut an ear of this ISIS terrorist. Well, we have to show it as, an example of courage, and this is what we do to the terrorist scum, and things like that. And not only terrorist scum, they also do that to civilians. I will talk about it in the upcoming stream. But anyways, so she forgot to mention the production of fakes.
Well, in talking about fakes, I remember specifically because I was translating them early in the war. Jenya and I were translating them. So like year one of the war, days 1 through 365, there were many, many times early in the war where you could see Vladimir Putin and he would be around a group of people. And then a week later, in a city 500 kilometers away, it would be the same group of people, the same actors. They were at a dinner, it would be the same actors. And we're screaming about it. Okay. My question is, why cannot people, and maybe this is for you, Professor Gerdes, why cannot a sane human being look at that video and say, that's fake? This guy can't be in Moscow and in Kazan and in Sochi. Okay, it's not. Putin can, but the people at the dinner are not. I mean, just people standing around him. We had that. And then on top of that, it is basically not so much now, but earlier in the war and here recently as well, where even their Minister of Defense, Shoigu, will blatantly lie right on his report. We shot down. I have the video in F-35. We shot one down. I have the video. Okay, we don't have an F-35 there, okay, sir? So you are the defense minister. Why does the world allow this to continue?
I'm in my mind trying to figure out which direction to attack first. There's so many directions that you can go with that. I think the first thing is people see what they want to see. So there's subset of the population that's like that. There's a subset of the population, particularly in Russia, that doesn't want to see anything. They just want to like let it go by. But in the West, you see what you want to see. So the Marjorie Taylor Greens and whatever will see even the fake and go, see, this is evidence. The rest of us are looking at it like, hey, why are these same 6 people around him? And we're questioning that because we believe in truth and like, hey, this is stage. I even did a segment early on. I used to do segments on my channel called Fun with Russian Propaganda, right? And so I did a segment where I did kind of a Where's Waldo with, what was her name, Larissa, the blonde lady that was one of the people that was always around him. And I'd like just put a little image of her somewhere in there and see if you can find her through the video, just as a way of pointing out, mocking that that's what is actually going on. But I think there's a bigger problem here that we wouldn't have had 20 years ago, because now many societies have embraced a postmodern, post-truth kind of atmosphere where it doesn't matter that there's no wall there if I don't believe that there's a wall there, because my narrative is more important than the wall. Got news for you. If I keep walking that way, I'm going to hit that wall. That's the way it works. And so I'm looking for truth. I'm not looking for creating or shaping the narrative as much as finding out what is real and what is not. When you are looking for truth, you're in a different position. You can actually be kind to your opponents instead of being an extremist and try to frame the narrative that these bad people did this terrible thing because they're this kind. You're like, no, this is the facts of what happened. And you don't have to be aggressive in order to shape the narrative. You can present the plain facts, and it just comes out differently when you're looking to interpret truth as opposed to when you're looking to try to shape a new narrative of some sort. So
let me ask this question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I had a couple comments pop up in my chat that illustrate this. I'm not sure what this person is trying to accomplish here. But here I have, speaking of propaganda, as of February 24th, Ukraine claimed 31,000 casualties. If so few losses, why then does Ukraine lack men for the front line? Inquiring minds want to know. Now, I'm going to come back to that in just a second and talk about it. And then there's a second one that says, speaking of propaganda, if the previous 113 billion didn't help Ukraine win, remember the disastrous summer offensive? How will the 61 billion make a difference? Inquiring minds want to know. I mean, it sounds like that's what RT does, is a question this, question that. It's not bad to question, but let's talk about that. So if you have 31, let's think through this. If you have, and Starsky, correct me anywhere where I go off the rail here, okay? 31 killed in action. That's not including wounded. They're pretty good about getting wounded out, so the multiple is maybe a little bit higher, but still they're a smaller nation than the Russian side. And so for all those factors, they have to be, and because they value life, unlike the Russians, who are more than willing to send people into the wood chipper. That value of life and all those other factors, they have to fight differently. And so, yeah, they have to be judicious about how they're mobilizing. These people have been fighting for a long time, not a lot of rotation in and out. So that's an issue. I'm going to address the second one, and then we'll Starsky correct anything where I get it wrong. Now, if the previous 113 billion didn't help Ukraine win, full stop. They've been fighting the second army in the world, they say, for 2 years when nobody expected them to be able to fight it off. I think they did a pretty darn good job by doing what they've been able to accomplish over this amount of time. And it's not just U.S. money, other money. I get it. But they, like, did you think it was just going to be over lickety split? Like, this is a tough task, right? So it's not, but this is the kind of soundbite that someone like a Marjorie Taylor Greene will replicate and then use, because they're shifting or shaping the narrative that way. And I've heard things just like that, like the second one. I've heard things just like that, or read it on Twitter and heard politicians say things. So you really have to be fair with the facts. Like, okay, you're a third of the size and population of Russia. Do they have to play a different game? Or, they disarm themselves from the nukes. The other side has the nukes and all the Soviet weaponry from years of the Soviet Union, and they don't. So, let's think through this. But I don't have to be mean. I don't have to be arrogant. I don't have to be caustic. I can just ask what I just asked. And all I'm doing is asking the same questions about this in a fair way. And I'm being fair to what the question was. But okay, anyway, Starsky, I've rambled too long.
Before he answers you, and I know he's ready to roll. Remember Skabayeva's number one point. It's important to focus on the interpretation of a fact, truth, or event, not on the truth itself. And that's the way the comments come. It's their interpretation. The reality is, in my opinion, this is the first real war the world has seen in decades. This is a real war. The Iraqi war, and I know it was a war, but we're talking about an entrenched supply line, long-term, global, at least economically, conflict. It's completely different thing, and we live in such a microwave mentality with social media. So, okay, Starsky, there you go to respond to Professor Gerdes.
First of all, I was impressed to hear the last commentary, because to my surprise, I received the same commentary, like to the word, under a number of my videos. I swear.
Is that right?
I was like, yeah. So it's not just a coincidence, I believe, and I think we should refer to numbers, because Russia's official 2022 military budget was approximately $75 billion, and it grew in 2023. It was almost $84 billion. So Ukraine receiving 100 plus in 2 years, of course, you cannot compare the numbers. And you also cannot compare the stockpile of munitions, because Ukraine was so much prepared to attack Russia, so it didn't stockpile munitions. Unlike Russia, that stockpiled thousands, almost 10,000 tanks, and millions of shells, preparing to preemptively invade another country. But that commentary, it's very interesting to hear. Like, I saw absolutely the same commentary like yesterday.
Hmm. Well, that's something.
Well, not only
So
that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of goofy stuff. I watch your YouTube, guys. Just be careful, and y'all are way bigger than I am. But it's like goofy stuff. I'm pretty technically savvy. Like I know my software, I know how to do all this stuff, and it's just settings getting changed, and I know I'm not doing it. So it's just keep an eye on your stuff there, guys, and keep your passwords changed and all that.
so
Let me ask this
let's talk
question.
about this.
Let me ask this question.
Hold on a second.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. The prof is fired up, man.
I was going to say there's facts in there that are embedded, right? Like we can all agree there are certain facts in here that are embedded, but the way that they shape it is the primary issue, right? So let's go back and look at that. Like we know what Zelensky said the numbers were, and well, why do they need it? What's going on? Like the way that they twist it is leading you like you almost need a lawyer to say, I object, Your Honor, they're leading the witness, right? And if somebody understands how logic works, they see that pretty clearly. Not a lot of people are going to catch that though. And then so they're going, I wonder why that is. Maybe something's wrong. I'll give you another example. I pulled this up on Twitter. I talked about it this morning in my daily brief. The NATO chief arrived. This is Che Bowes. He's the RT guy, the Irish sounding guy on RT. The NATO chief arrived in Kyiv, promising more weapons and more war. Okay, that's not he was promising more weapons. Okay, you could say that, I guess. That's fair enough. Okay, but he conveniently forgot to mention that 500,000 Ukrainians have been killed losing his war. Huh? No, he didn't conveniently forget to mention that. That's a fictitious number that you just made up not that you just made up, that RT's been pushing out there for some time now, and that he's like letting in as by saying it as an assumption that it is true when it's not. And so I think that's more insidious when you have an assumption built into what is being said as part of the argument, and nobody is there to, challenge it. So, okay, at any rate, I'm sorry. I just want to get in that last little point before whatever you were going to say.
No, I was going to ask this for both of you guys in regard to this, and people, like you said, you can say there's no wall behind me, but if I walk into it, I'm going to get knocked down because it is behind me. Has social media, and I know Starsky with your new initiatives, you're really looking at the propaganda, countering it, educating. Is social media helping us become better or making us worse?
It depends on how you use it.
Okay.
It depends on how you're using it. If you're using it as an information consumer, which 99% of people do, then it depends. Of course, if we're talking about the Russian propaganda, we are susceptible to the Russian propaganda. If we are using internet with the purpose of fact-checking and things like that, yes, we're learning, but at the same time, we don't really do that. Let's be honest. So at this point, it rather doesn't help us much, but I'm sure that if we all wish to change that, we can.
How, Professor Gerdes, this is your world of education, how do we help people find good sources and not be twisted through manipulation?
Yeah, that's a lot of what I try to do. You were talking about, is social media good or bad? It's an accelerant, and it accelerates good people. It democratizes, but it also accelerates the bad guys, and it accelerates the bad guys far more than it helps the good people be good, in my estimation. There's even an interesting article, the psychology article. It was a Baumeister talked about why bad is stronger than good, and what he means by that, like, you can have a good childhood, but if you have something bad happen to you, like if you went to Disney World, that's good. If somebody molested you, that's bad. And that's really bad. It's like significantly bad. So a bad experience is far better than a good experience. And it's kind of like that. Social media has a life of projecting bad much quicker. In fact, there are studies that show that on Twitter, false information travels faster than true information. Emotionally charged information moves faster than just fact-based things. So if you're trying to be rational and polite, you're actually almost at a disadvantage because the medium. And so the medium is the message, and that's where we are with social media. I think you need to be fighting on that field, but you know that it's an uphill battle.
Let me go to her second point, and it may not have been in order. I know Starsky's watched this already, but one of her points, the second one I'm sharing, the fact truth event itself is going right along with what we're talking tonight. And this was really the purpose of tonight, understanding this propaganda machine. The fact truth event itself does not matter, but the reaction and the opinion that is formed from it is what is most important. So once again, not only is it interpretation, but they want the reaction, the opinion that is formed. And now I will give a view on this. Okay. So Professor Gerdes, you know my background. Starsky, we're getting to know each other better. I've been working over there for 30 years. Started in Moscow in 94. And then I started working in Ukraine in 98. And I've been working Ukraine nonstop ever since. I speak the Russian language. I run the front lines with our heroes, delivering tons of aid that we've all raised together, getting ready to deliver 4 armored vehicles to the front that we've all done together. Okay. And I literally had a person that has known me for 20 years a few weeks ago walk up to me. And this is what they said. Man, I watched some of your videos. It's really cool what you're doing there. I'm proud of you. You're my friend. And just amazing. You're helping people. And like, you're an idiot. You could get killed. Just you're friendly kind of person. My friend. And then they go, but Greg, why are you supporting the Nazis? That was the question. Now, you two fellows, listen, I've known this person for 20 years. They know what I do. They know who I am. And they point blank asked me, why do you support? I said, what are you talking about? And we went into an hour-long conversation where I was able to re-educate after I got a little upset and got a little tight with them. So hold on now. Those are fighting words. But it took me an hour to begin to deprogram that through example and narrative. So my point here being, the fact truth doesn't matter, but that opinion that is formed and then layered over layered over layered. And I literally, with my own personal friend, had to peel them back one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. And then they looked at me and goes, you know what? You might be right. I said, of course I'm right. I go there. Okay. But the point being, it was very hard for me to break through that. Now think about people by the millions that you do not have that kind of relationship with, to peel it back layer by layer by layer. Those opinions are tough to root out. Starsky, throw it to you.
Yeah, well, here, as Professor Gerdes mentioned, we are dealing with negative information and emotionally charged information. It reminds me of this old joke, when there are people on the market, open air market, and the man shouts to another man like, hey, I've heard that you molested your neighbor's daughter. And everybody go, oh, and he's like, but I didn't do that. And he's like, I will have to prove it to the people. it's like this. People perceive emotionally charged information much better than they perceive it through prism of emotions, not through rational thinking. Unfortunately, in majority of cases, and what we had here was. Exactly that. It's very easy to ruin somebody's image than to rebuild it. It's generally easier to ruin something than to build something new. And one thing I wanted to mention, I forgot. I'm sorry. I have this freaking dementia. I'm losing thoughts. Yeah, but that's the thing.
Prof?
So what struck me about that is that you had to re-educate.
Correct.
You didn't have to educate. There's some pre-existing framework, some scaffolding in his head that's saying, yes, Ukraine, they're fighting Russia, they're Nazis, they're this, they're that, the Russians are this, the Russians are that, right? There's some things that have filtered through. Now, where did he get it from? You've known him for 20 years. Was it Tucker? Was it, you understand what I'm saying? Like, what media was he absorbing that he thought, because honestly, before 2022, if you had a conversation about Ukraine with most Americans, it would have been brief.
Well, let's
right?
be honest.
Like
let's be honest, and not disrespectful to Starsky, but most Americans would not even know where it is on a map.
Yeah.
Serious.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's understandable, like to some degree, that they wouldn't have that much information about it. And okay, but since 2022, they have been educated or miseducated about these particular points that then you have to fight with. Now, those points come from Russian state media that are then filtered through what I call repeaters. And those repeaters are the Tucker Carlsons and the Redacted and the Duran and those kind of outfit, Doug McGregor, Scott Ritter, those guys, right? And those people then add that scaffolding into your friend's head, and then we have the problem that we had. So it's the re-education that I find is interesting. The other thing that struck me was when she said, can you put that slide back up on the screen? Do you have that there?
Of course.
Okay. So yeah, it doesn't really matter what's happening. What matters is how we interpret the event. Okay. So that means if she's telling me that there is zero value in listening to RT for truth. Okay. Now I go to RT all the time, but I get it to see what they're saying and try to figure out why they're saying it. What are they trying to project, but not for truth, not saying, hey, the Russians are saying this might be true. That might be true. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're trying to project this image. Why are they trying to project this image? What are they hoping to accomplish? And that's a very different thing than saying even handedly, well, the Ukrainians are this, but the Russians say that, which is true. You don't do it that way. So there's zero reason to be listening to RT for truth if they hold that position.
Yeah, I would like to add something to this. So first of all, regarding the reaction, she says truth doesn't matter; it's the reaction that matters. And just two examples how it works. Okay, one example is Russian invader who killed a man near a club. There was like a fight, and he was insulted by a man in the club in Russia, and he started beating him, and he beat him to death. So basically, he died, and he got this Russian invader got tried. And instead of receiving some maximal term behind the bars, he received like approximately 9 years, as far as I remember, because he was he deserved, to be treated like a hero. So Russians have this thing when law doesn't matter. It's it's human relations. The man deserved because he was fighting and stuff like that. Another example, what they say is okay. Let's talk about the propaganda on the West specifically. So they go like this. Russia, of course, does some pretty nasty things in Ukraine, right? But calling this invasion unprovoked, have you
Mm.
seen what Ukrainians did? They're Nazis, their corruption,
Hmm.
they're bad. They wanted to invade Russia. They're American puppets, and blah blah blah. So basically, they're trying to justify this from human standpoint, right? United Nations, internationally recognized borders, legislation, law. Are you kidding me? It was provoked, and they are like, it's their fault. So when people are trying to comprehend this thing, they must understand that there is like law, right? There are rules that we have to follow, and there is some crazy shit. Like this girl was raped because she was wearing a short skirt, right? Her skirt was too small, and that's why she got raped. That's basically what you see in some middle Asian countries. That's exactly what they're talking about. Russia was preemptively uh, attacking Ukraine in order to protect its borders. Right? I remember only one person who preemptively attacked other countries to protect its country. His name was the H man, right?
Hmm.
The Adolf.
Hmm.
That's just a couple examples of how it works, how the reaction is valued more than the information itself, and the international recognized laws and rules. They just stop having any sense.
Let me ask you a question,
So,
personal. Let me, and then Professor, I'll come to you, Starsky. As a Ukrainian, it's just a personal question, okay? I think viewers would like to hear your response. Does it bother you when Ukrainians are called Nazis?
Of
But
course
what,
it does.
of course, but a little bit more. What is like? What is the emotion? Like, I try to put myself in your shoes, okay? Because I'm going to be honest with you. 3 weeks ago, when I had to deal with this in the example I gave, like, man, I was ready to fight, and it's not really good for a pastor to fight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I was ready to knock somebody out and would have enjoyed it, to be quite honest. So I can only imagine if every day on the media, on the propaganda, all you hear is this lies and trash. It has to emotionally affect you.
Currently, it emotionally affects me because it's like, you live normal life, normal everyday's life, everything's fine, and then somebody attacks you, calling you, I don't know, like racist,
Mm-hmm.
or Islamist or terrorist, or something like that. You go, dude, are you freaking insane? You probably like took me for another person. It's not me, right?
yeah.
I'm dating a Persian person. I cannot be Nazi, but different people go like, yeah, like you're Nazi. What you're doing is Nazi. You go like, why? Why I'm Nazi? Can you please
Correct.
prove it to me? Yeah, that's the thing. Another thing which bothers me, it's really internal thing. Here in Ukraine, we have this very twisted sense of humor, right? In 2014 or 2015, I believe it was in 2014, Russian propaganda started spreading fakes that it was like real stuff in the Russian media. They started spreading fakes that Ukrainian soldiers, participants of the anti-terrorist operation, on Donbass, were promised two Russian speaking slaves and a piece of land at Donbass. And it was in the Russian media, like all over their social media. So we were promised 2 Russian-speaking slaves. Me personally, I don't know where to find them yet, and whom to call to receive them, because I have my washing machine broken. And a piece of land. So we started making patches saying slave owner, right, in order to laugh at that. And back then it was funny. Of course, nowadays I would never wear that patch, considering Black Lives Matters and things like that. Like, we evolved big time because we became more integrated into international society. But back then, internally, it was like a funny joke, and this twisted sense of humor is the reason why, for example, Ukrainian soldiers that have absolutely nothing to do with social nationalist ideology, right? And they're being called Nazis by like Russians or pro-Russian speakers on the West. They go, haha, let's laugh. And they, for example, wear a patch with dead head, just to laugh at this joke. At the same time, they don't realize that they get photographed or screenshotted and brought like online by Russian propagandists that say, like, you see them, they're wearing SS patches, like what I told you, and things like that. So it's both because, when individuals like pro-Russian propagandists and their followers on the West call me Nazi, inside I want to scream, like, it never freaking happened. Prove it, And at the same time, we have this small internal problem that comes out of people's stupidity, probably naiveness, and not realizing the dangers of such actions, as laughing at laughing at a fake joke, but wearing symbols they don't really understand what they bring, what they contain in them.
It takes me back to this once again. So, guys, if you were just listening to Starsky talk about personal things to him, look back at the methodology. It's more important to focus on the interpretation of a truth, not the truth. And number two, truth doesn't matter, but the reaction and the opinions that are formed is what is most important. And he was giving you a real life example at that. Professor Gerdes, I want to throw it to you. You were going to say something, and then I'm going to show you guys one more thing and get your opinion on that and be respectful of your time. It's getting late at night for Starsky, and Rolf, you have a crew there, I know. So,
yeah.
By the way,
if you
nice flag behind you.
Like that?
Yeah, he's got his fish flag, guys. There's Shevchenko.
Oh.
Yep. So if you believe that truth matters, then you operate differently. I established that earlier. Now, it's important then, if you're in that category, that you push back against faulty narratives. So the Ukrainians, they're all Nazis. Really? So when people put that in my comments for months, I just said, that's great. Show me the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody could ever provide. Provide the links. I'd like to see where the Nazis are. Like, if you ask the Nazis in Germany in the 1940s, where are the Nazis? There'd be people like that'd be raising their hands and say Heil or whatever they'd say. Like they are you trying to tell me that all the Nazis are in a secret conspiracy cabal, that they're really there, but we're not going to tell you? Is that what you really are trying to articulate? That's laughable. Or it's because NATO is encroaching. NATO is not encroaching. It's countries running away from Russia joining NATO. Warsaw Pact countries that are joining NATO voluntarily because they don't want to be under Russia's thumb. So you have to correct the narrative, not just let it be. Okay, I'll be quiet. Go ahead.
No, beautiful. Part. In fact, I'll just put a couple comments up here, and I want to thank Paul shooting the comments in here for me, and all of our mods. You're doing a great job tonight. Y'all watching, this is President Reagan. Y'all watching Georgia? Yes, Georgia is looking Maidanish. Rhonda Bailey, nice comment here. So sad it took this to get to know Ukrainians. This community must stay connected after Ukraine wins. Very nice comment, Rhonda Bailey. And we will stay connected, I promise you. Nice comment here for the Prof and Starsky. Operator Starsky and the professor, a dream team. It really is, and I'm so thankful that they're here tonight, and a great conversation. Linda S from Australia, huge supporter. There's so much information now that we have online media that people don't have time to stop and think. Beautiful. When I was young, we only had TV and radio, and info was slow, so it gave people time. Great comment. Thank somebody. And I will show you one more. David L. here. Thank you, Greg, Starsky, and Professor, for your continued dedication to the defense of Ukraine. And to that, I respond, do paramoga, which means until victory. So I want to show you guys one last thing, and I'll be honest with you, I want to do a deep dive on this. This may be one I break down, because let me play you the first 2 minutes. We'll play you the first 2 minutes and then get your response. So be thinking. Here we go.
Alexander Dugin is a 62-year-old Russian academic philosopher. He spent his life in Moscow. He was an anti-Soviet dissident as a young man. And now he is famous.
First of all, Tucker, it's Moscow. If you're going to speak, you can at least say it correctly. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Alexander Dugin is a 62-year-old Russian academic philosopher. He spent his life in Moscow. He was an anti-Soviet dissident as a young man. And now he is famous the world over, in the English language press anyway, as, quote, Putin's brain. But he is not a political figure here in Russia. He is, once again, a philosopher. And his ideas are deeply offensive to some people. In August of 2022, his only daughter was murdered in Moscow when a car bomb killed her. U.S. intelligence says she was murdered by the Ukrainian government, and we take that at face value. But what's interesting is that, once again, Alexander Dugin is not a military leader. He's not a close daily advisor to Vladimir Putin. He is a writer who writes about big ideas. And for this, his books have been banned by the Biden administration in the United States. You cannot buy them on Amazon. Banning books in the United States because the ideas inside are too dangerous.
We'll leave it there for now. That's enough of his trash. First of all, I'll just say this. Dugin, well, you know what? You guys go, because I've done a deep dive on Dugin. Starsky, we've got him smiling back there. And I see people in the chat like screaming, Greg, take it off the screen. Take it off the screen. I'm taking it off, but you need to hear this trash. So,
Alexander Dugin, so Dugin is creator of the fascist ideology of Ruski Mir, with Russia being supreme country and having their own way, their deep connection to cosmos, nature, and stuff, and basically they deserve to rule the planet, and this is why he's so much valued there in Russia, and you know the theses that Tucker says, they are so funny. Like, Dugin is not a military leader.
He's a philosopher.
Man, Adolf Hitler was a peaceful artist. He was not
vegetarian.
A military leader. He never harmed an animal. So there are books that are too dangerous. If you read books produced, for example, by Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, then apparently they're not really supposed to be sold, on Amazon. Oh my freaking God. But again, this, if you read what Skabeeva said, that is clear example how this works.
That was the reason I took those 2 points of Skabeeva and this little clip from Trader Carlson. And I know we're going to Prof. Gerdes in just a second, but guys, let me just reiterate what Starsky said. Basically, very little of what Tucker said was actually accurate. Does he write? Yes. Is he a philosopher? Yes. But is he so much more? And that is just the bare minimum? Absolutely. His mindset, his creation of the narrative. Guys, just think about this for 1 second. For you in here that are Americans, he hates America.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that are in here that are Europeans, he hates Europe. And Tucker is sitting there, and his narrative push is putting the fault on Joe Biden for banning books. This is how this is how twisted this is. And it needs to be smashed. The thing that bothers me, guys, and I don't follow this guy, and I never will. But if I go, let me just show this real quick. The cat has 12.8 million followers, and this video's been viewed 5.7 million times with 52,000 hearts, 18,000 retweets. We're talking about a big footprint of that trash.
That's the miseducation like your friend had that needs to be re-educated. So I wasn't even going to be looking at the parts that Starsky was looking at. I was looking at the content because I watched this last night, and then I had to calm down before going to sleep. And by the way, some people were telling me on this, like, because I put out on my community, do you want me to review this? If I have a super majority, I'll do it. If not, that's okay. And it was barely a majority, but I got a lot of people that are saying, don't platform him. No. We need someone like me or Starsky or you or someone to actually take what he said and destroy it. Mm-hmm. That's what you should be doing, and show it. So you don't just show him. That would be bad. You show him and some points. So, for example, he started talking about, if you go into the video, about how individualism is the problem with the world. Individualism is the problem with Western society, because that's what led us to woke or transgender or this or that or the other thing. Now, it doesn't have to. One, it was the basis of the Western flourishing for hundreds or maybe even thousands of years, is this understanding of the individual as the unit, not the collective. And so that's an important point to understand. It doesn't have to go off the rails, but he's saying it's going off the rails. Tucker's not questioning him on that. But what's his alternative? Putinism is the alternative to individualism? Is that what you want? Because what Tucker's doing is not questioning him, just letting him talk, giving an enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of effect to people that wouldn't actually buy what Putin is selling. If Putin was here saying, I want to have you should live under an authoritarian regime like I have, where if you hold up a blank piece of paper at a protest, you can go to jail. If you did that, no way that would happen. But this is the narrative that's being shaped. Tucker doesn't question him because Tucker's not acting like a journalist. He is in his corner trying to help him push that narrative. A journalist would be like doing what I'm doing, right? I'm not a journalist, but that's what a journalist should be doing, is questioning him, asking him why. Tucker likes to question when when Tucker questions. When Tucker questions, it's something that's not friendly to his worldview. And when he doesn't question, it's very friendly to his worldview, and he wants to keep that. Okay, I'll again yield the floor.
No, it's just, listen, we could talk about this for days, but this is, you and I talk basically every day, Professor Gerdes, and Starsky and I now pretty much message almost daily, just hello, how you doing, buddy, and encourage each other. And the bottom line is this: if we do not do things like this, a little bit of time, let people take time to start learning. Okay, maybe that comment from Australia was fantastic. We need to think a little bit. Once again, what Tucker's doing is just pushing the propagandist narrative of lies. And we're right back to this interpretation of the truth, not the truth, and the reaction and opinion formed okay. So just take her second point, and then we'll go to closing. Let Starsky go to bed. Her second point, the reaction, guys, the moment I put Tucker's video up, my chat was flying. Turn him off, turn him off, turn him off, turn him off. Okay, good reaction, but think about it. The reaction was there. It was there. You saw it, you hear it, and that is the purpose of it. And for me personally, I do not have an answer, and I won't make one up, but
So there's no one of Tucker's.
I don't get how anybody could sit with somebody like Dugan and even give the inclination that there's value in what he's spouting. I can't even comprehend that.
But there's not a Tucker of the other side challenging, like not okay, I'm challenging it, but I have 56,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tiny little guy compared to 10 million, 12 million, whatever it was, right? So there's no one of his equivalent stature that's willing to take him to task that is out there. So, and this is actually, healthy debate is a useful thing. Right. I say this a lot. Like, I'm a Republican. We actually need Democrats to keep us from going off the rails, and vice versa. You do need that other side to keep you honest. And that's where freedom of speech is really robust and useful. There's no equivalent out there that I can see that has that stature, that can speak to a conservative audience who he's speaking to and undermine and destroy those arguments. And so that's where you get to that guy that was talking about the Nazis to you.
Well, once again, and we'll throw it to Starsky for closing comment here. Who is one of Tucker Carlson's biggest fans? That would be Elon Musk. Okay, pushing his narrative, his agenda, blowing up X or Twitter with him, and now you go to Elon Musk and you're at 181 million followers. So it's simple to see in some ways how this gets pushed, and you then get into what gets pushed and the agendas that get pushed and why they get pushed. I will tell you this: I've been doing. So I do not watch TV. I only watch certain shows, and like I'll just watch them. Like I watched the Andy Griffith Show, and then a couple of shows I like. Maybe it's like a Criminal Minds, and I like Monk, and I like The Mentalist. And I watch these over and over and over in the Blacklist. And now it has started to really weigh on me a bit, because since about 2008, and Starsky, this is going to be interesting for you, in these television programs that were produced basically mid 2000s up to 2020-ish, and now they're off, okay, that window, brother, so many comments over that time span in those television programs about the separatists, the Ukrainians attacking the Donbass. And I watched an episode on Monk just last week. This is just an American detective. It's just a little show. And they had caught this criminal warlord of the world, and Monk was figuring it out. And Monk got a hold of his ring. And there may be people who've seen this episode. On his ring, the symbol of his evil was the Ukrainian trident. See, I'm getting to the point now where, like, I want to pull out all of those things and show it to the world and say, okay, I'm not crazy, but this is time after time after time after time after time. And it's almost like there is a narrative that's been pushed by the Kremlin for decades and decades, and they are in Hollywood, and they are in Washington, D.C., and they are in Berlin, and they are in London, and they are in Paris, and they were in NATO. They're everywhere, okay? And if we don't recognize it and try to do something about it, it's not going to change. So I'm proud to stand with you guys and fight for truth. Thank you.
Thank you. What I can say is that this is exactly how Russian propagandists and technologists trained their citizens to hate Ukrainians, is because every single movie where there's Ukrainian, he's like either a gangster or a prostitute or just an imbecile, I can bring like a lot of examples, but like one of their favorite TV shows, Nyanya, the caretaker. She was looking for after kids. She came from
The
Ukraine
nanny.
to the nanny. Yeah, she
Mm-hmm.
came from Ukraine to Russia and started hooking up with rich men and stuff like that. So this is how they were training their citizens to perceive Ukrainians as Untermenschen, as lower race. And it was like that actually for quite a decades, because we were talking about Soviet Union, where if you spoke Ukrainian, you were like a lower human being. You had to speak Russian if you wanted to be successful, because you were living in a Russian Empire. So with the time, these things, they bring their results. But luckily, we know approximately the names of people and the names of organizations that are one way or another connected to producing those movies on the West, to popularizing pro-Russian influencers on the West, and of course creating bots, because one way or another, Russian propaganda consists of people who have names and organizations that also have names, and we know about them.
Well, the bottom line is, guys, we are fighting a real war on multiple fronts. And tonight or this morning, if you're in Australia, when you lay your head down to rest, I want you to remember first and foremost the Ukrainian heroes on that zero line, laying in trenches tonight and dealing with horrible situations and fighting for their nation, their sovereignty, their children, their grandchildren, and fighting for you and I. We remember that. That's front number one. Front number two is this battle that we are grabbing and running together with against false narratives and the hunt, not for Red October, but the hunt for truth, and to share that truth and bring the world together. So that's what we're about. Starsky, thank you so much for being up late and joining us. Appreciate it, brother.
Hey, before you go,
Thank you.
somebody
Thank you.
asked me in the chat, Starsky, would you wear a MUGA hat?
Manga.
They said, ask Starsky, would you wear a MUGA hat?
Make
Ukraine great again.
Great again.
I don't think so, because I don't believe that some country must be greater than others.
Go ahead,
and
brother.
I believe that it's us human who make our countries great. But one thing I would also like to add to this, guys, whenever you are in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, in Australia, in Japan, in Africa, wherever you are, today when you go to bed, before you fall asleep, think about Ukrainian citizens, which are, so different, old people, young people, kids, men, women, girls, boys, all Ukrainian citizens who are trapped in Ukraine in this war that is happening there. And they are alive, some of them at least are alive because you did something to help them, because you sent your support, because you participated in fundraisers, because you called other people to help Ukraine, because you shared some important information, and other people who could help, they saw this information. Guys, those people survived because of you. And I would like to say thank you so much for this.
Beautifully stated. And for all of you guys watching my channel, Professor's channel, what a beautiful statement there coming from Starsky, Ukrainian veteran and freedom fighter now. Dunk on you. Thank you for that 20. Michael Jordan, my friend, of those gifted memberships. I bag the gifted memberships. TTT for your donation there. Much appreciated with the NOK 50. Deep appreciation going to the guys. And we're getting it done. Prof, to you to say good night. And we'll see you guys tomorrow night on my channel. And make sure you are subscribed to Professor Gerdes and also Operator Starsky. And if you're watching on their channels, check my channel out too as well. Greg Terry Experience. We're all working together and great team here. So thank you. Thank you. Prof, we're going to give it to the bearded one since you have white in the beard.
That's my children did that. I can't improve on anything that Starsky said, so I'm going to yield the floor.
Don't you just love it, yielding the floor? All right, so here's what we're going to do tonight, guys. We're going to allow Professor Gerdes to make his little statement he always makes, the conclusion of his videos, and we'll give Starsky the last one. He'll answer what I say, and he doesn't need prompting. He knows what to do, So
I always conclude with thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.
Slava Ukraina.
Героям слава.
Слава Україні!
Героям